How's it going, everyone? This is cloudchief, and in today's video I wanted to go over Abyssea Procs in detail. Now, I already went over Abyssea Procs in my Abyssea Beginner's Guide video. However, been having some questions about it, so I wanted to make a specific video just for procs so that way people can easily find it and get their questions answered. Plus, I'm going to go into a little more detail here than I did in my other video. There are three different types of procs that you can do in Abyssea. You can do procs with magic weapon skills, you can do procs with physical weapon skills, and then you can do procs with magic. Whenever you first claim an NM, it is going to pick a specific either weapon skill or magic spell that will proc whatever specific type. Whatever proc it gets locked in at when it's claimed, it will stay that proc. The only way it would change is if you lost hate and then you reclaimed it, at which point it will then, randomly pick another proc. When you proc an NM, it will give the NM a status effect. If you red proc it, it will terrorize the NM. If you blue proc it, it will amnesia the NM, and if you yellow proc it, it will silence the NM. You also can multi-proc an NM, so you could proc red, yellow, and blue, so you could hit all three procs on the same NM. You can also continually hit the same proc. So, if you triggered red by, say, doing Shadow of Death, you then now know it's Shadow of Death, and once Terrorize wears off, you can then do Shadow of Death again, and it'll terrorize it. If you do proc the same proc multiple times, the status effects that it will receive will become less and less until it basically fully resists. Procking an NM multiple times with the same proc is not recommended because of diminishing returns, either items or key items that you'll get from the NM, and I'll touch on that in a second. But procking all three procs once is recommended if you actually want it to get whatever you get out of the proc for that NM. So now let's actually touch on the procking, and I will start with red procking because this is the main procking that you really spend the most time doing. Red procking is performed by doing certain elemental weapon skills to the NM. You can refer to this list here to see all 13 procs. The best jobs to proc for red proc is going to be either war or ninja, with either of the jobs subbing the other one. So war nin or nin war can potentially give you every single proc. The only thing that's really stopping, say, a ninja or war from really having all the procs is actually having a weapon for, all the procs. Like a warrior having a katana and great katana is a little harder to come by. Whereas, same thing for, say, a ninja getting a great sword or a scythe is a little more hard to come by. But there are definitely costume and level 1 weapons that you can get that all jobs can use. After War Nin, Paladin then comes next on the list for being able to hit the most procs, then followed by Dark Knight, with then, the amount of red procs just really dropping off, where those are really going to be your best jobs. But I highly recommend that you stick with either War or Ninja if you're trying to do a lot of red procking. So when you proc red on the NM, it will guarantee that you get the key item. You can get the key item whether it is, say, an Atma or Abyssite or whatever without procking red. However, procking red once will guarantee a 100% drop rate for whatever key item that it drops. Now let's move on to blue procs. Blue procs are physical weapon skills. What's interesting is what in-game time it is will determine what weapon type of proc it will be. So if you claim an NM between 600 and 1400 Vanadil time, it will be piercing. If you claim an NM between 1400 and 2200 Vanadil time, it will be slashing. And if you claim an NM between 2200 and 600, it will be blunt. By procking blue once, you push up the chance for armor or weapon drop from the NM, giving you a very high chance. The interesting thing is, proccing blue once does not guarantee a 100% chance for the drop. However, it does dramatically increase it. So let's say you're going for a specific drop, like Epona's Ring. Best thing to do would be to go out on, say, Monk, and also if you had a white mage, and go do Blunt Time. Well, if you do that, you can have every proc covered. I believe Monk can do every single proc except for Hexa Strike, which is what you would want the white mage there for. Oh, you could also have a Geo, because Geo could do Hexa Strike. So either one of those would be good, and you would cover all the procs with just 2 jobs. Or if you don't have Monk, the next best job is going to be War, with it then followed by Dark Knight. So now let's move on to yellow procs, which is staggered by magic. Pretty much what determines what proc it's going to be is actually going to be the Vanadil day that you actually claim the mob. It has the potential to be that element, or the element for the day before that day and after it. So let's go ahead and say you claim the NM on Wednesday. That means it has a chance of being either water-based magic, wind-based magic, or ice-based magic. If you're really trying to proc yellow, unless it's light day, your best chance for getting the proc is to be Black Mage Ninja or Black Mage Bard. Typically, if I was going to proc yellow and I was doing it with a friend, we would either do it Thief Ninja, and obviously the Thief would be trying to hit the Ninja procs, and then you would have a Black Mage Bard that would cover all the Black Mage and Bard procs. Procking yellow on NM increases the drop rate of seals and +2 items that are used for Empyrean armor. So this is a great way to, get your Empyrean armor upgraded. So that pretty much sums up, all the different proc types. But there's a couple more things I do want to go over real quick. So in the event that you claim a mob, and let's say you're trying to proc red, and let's just go ahead and say, you're warrior, but you don't have, all the procs. You don't have a katana and your great katana. So you claim the NM, and it happens to be darkness. If you had discernment, you would find out that it's darkness. I'll talk about discernment in a minute. So you try to do energy drain, it doesn't proc. You do shadow of death, it doesn't proc. So you've determined that it's blade E, and you don't have a katana, so you can't do blade E. So does that mean that the NM is just forfeited and you need to go farm another, pop for the NM? Well, actually, no. What you can do is you can lose hate on the NM, and then when you reclaim it, it will actually change the proc. There's a chance it might be the same proc, but it's going to randomly pick another proc again. The best way to do this is to actually just go to a conflux and conflux jump to another conflux. By doing this, you will lose hate on the mob, and then it will reset. So when then you come back and claim it again, it will have a different proc type. Now, the only risk with this is that your NM is going to go unclaimed and lose hate, at which point it is clearly available for it to be stolen. So if you're going to do this, you want to, be aware whether someone else is around to potentially steal your NM. Nowadays, Abyssea is pretty empty, so you don't really have to run this risk, but I could see it happening with, say, the Chimera NM up in range. You pop the lower tier NM, but you need to proc red so you can get the higher one. I could see you not having the proc, you run to the conflux, you zone, and someone else is there who's trying to farm the Chimera also, sees the lesser Chimera unclaimed, goes ahead and claim it, bam, now, you just lost, your whole pop set. So that is the one caveat to losing hate that you want to be careful of. The only other thing I can think at this point to touch on for proccing NMs is talking about the Abyssea of Discernment. By clearing all 9 zone bosses and clearing all 6 Cataray NMs, and then going and talking to Jokum, he will give you Abyssea of Discernment. Which Abyssea of Discernment, whenever you do a weapon skill to the NM, or you cast a spell, it will give you, it may give you a message giving you a hint of what it could be. And it doesn't need to be the weapon skill that'll proc, but it will tell you what type. Another thing about Abyssea discernment is that whatever the actual proc is, whenever you're doing that weapon skill, you will not get a message. So if you're going through the list trying to proc, and then you know that something is dirty but you didn't get the message, then there is still a chance that that could be it. It needs to be clean for it to actually proc. And what I mean by that is, so if you're doing a weapon skill, for it to be clean, the mob cannot be doing a weapon skill or TP move or casting any spells. If you do a weapon skill or cast a spell and it lands at the time it's casting a spell or doing a weapon skill, it is considered dirty and the mob will not proc and the status effects will not go off. It needs to be just doing auto attacks. But something else to note, if say you're fighting an Iron Giant or something that does say cleave type moves, when it does that cleave type move, it is considered dirty. You need to basically wait until it is, standing still and not swinging. So, like, Iron Giants can be a pain to proc. And that's pretty much for procking in Abyssea. There are other types of procking systems, but they are completely different, and it works completely different than the way Abyssea is. This is strictly for Abyssea zones, but it is very important, that way you can make progress through Abyssea. So I hope you guys got some value out of this. If you did, go ahead and leave the video a like. Thank you for supporting me and supporting my channel, and may you have success in all you do.